You're watching Saturday Anime on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Greetings, this is Reverend Paul, and this is Studio Chojin Raw. I hope everybody had a happy new year. This is the first Studio Chojin video of 2022, and I figured it would be fun if we talked about what makes a good hero. The last video I made, I gave my thoughts on what I thought made something original. Now I figure it might be kind of cool to tell you, in my opinion, what makes a good hero. Now, this is just me speaking off the cuff. This is not a super formal video. This is not a so-called video essay. I hate the term video essay. I know this is I'm getting off topic here, but I hate the term video essay. I find the term video essay really fucking pretentious, and I find the content that people associate with the term video essay to be fucking insufferable. Now, I guess to be fair, like, look, not all video essays are bad. There are plenty of good ones out there, I'm sure. The type of video I associate with the term video essay, you know, you've seen these videos before, where like the person talking just comes off as like some like pseudo-intellectual sniffing their own farts fucking douchebag, and they like deliver the whole video in this weird hushed tone where it's something like, what does it mean to be strong? What does it mean to fight for one's existence? What does it mean to wear a red cap in a city of gray? What the fuck does any of that shit mean? Why are you whispering to me? Oh my God. I'm sorry, I digress. Let's get back to the point. No, this is not going to be a super formal video essay. This is just going to be me telling you my thoughts on what makes a good hero. And what makes me qualified to do that? Absolutely fucking nothing. Look, I've mentioned before, I'm working on a comic. I'm writing my Breast Gladiators comic. I'm the creator of Breast Gladiators. So I figured if I'm writing a comic book about these big-breasted fucking gladiator heroes, clearly I must have some kind of opinion on what makes a good hero. So if you are interested in knowing what the Breast Gladiators guy thinks makes a good hero, then you are in for a treat. And so without further ado, let's get started, shall we? Now, the first thing I think is worth pointing out is that when we're talking about heroes, specifically, we're talking about heroic action heroes. You know, we're talking about superheroes, we're talking about shonen heroes, martial arts heroes. We're talking about characters in a heroic action adventure story. So in that context, I think there are two qualities that make for a successful hero. The first is relatability, and the second is admirability. In other words, the audience needs to be able to relate to the character and like the character, and the audience has to admire the character. The character has to represent an ideal that the audience wants to strive for. And I think a really great place to see these qualities is in My Hero Academia. My Hero Academia, if you have not seen it, is an anime superhero story, and it tells the story about a kid named Deku who wants to be a great hero like his hero, All Might. And All Might is kind of like a Superman type character, where he is this super strong, super powerful, smiling symbol of peace. He's kind of a dork, he wants to help everybody, and there's not like a bad bone in his body. Now, what ends up happening in My Hero Academia is Deku has no powers, he's completely useless, and there's no way in hell he could ever become a superhero. But it turns out that All Might is actually able to give him his power. So All Might gives Deku his superpowers and starts to train Deku to become his replacement. And the interesting thing about My Hero Academia is this idea of relatability and admirability. It works on two levels, because Deku relates to All Might because All Might has a lot of the same qualities as Deku, the optimism and the altruism and the desire to always help. Deku's personality is very similar to All Might. So, I mean, it makes sense that these two characters would form a relationship. And on top of that, Deku admires All Might for his strength and his power and his ability to help. I mean, that's the key difference between Deku and All Might, is that All Might has the desire and the ability to help people, and Deku has the desire but no ability, you know, and that's why he admires All Might. So Deku is very much a fan of All Might, and that principle of admirability and relatability is very apparent in the relationship between Deku and All Might. Furthermore, the idea of relatability and admirability is in Deku himself. The reader reading the story relates to Deku. The people who read My Hero Academia, you know, people like myself, you could relate to Deku being this kind of like clumsy, bumbling guy who like people don't respect him. And it's like, I think everybody could relate to that. But then when Deku gets All Might's superpowers and he becomes a hero, that gives the audience something to aspire aspire to be courageous and heroic like Deku. So with that said, I think relatability and admirability are the two qualities you want your hero to have. Now, another interesting thing about heroes is that I think we can kind of boil down heroes into three archetypes. I think you have the Boy Scout, you have the everyman, and then you have the anti-hero. And the Boy Scout hero is the Superman type hero. A hero who doesn't kill people, a hero who sees violence as a last resort, a hero who is optimistic and is always trying to bring out the best in people. You know, a Boy Scout hero is like a beacon of positivity. I think another really great example of this kind of hero is Vash the Stampede. Vash the Stampede he's a pacifist, he's always cheerful, always in a good mood. Vash the Stampede, along with All Might, feel like Superman type characters. The second hero archetype I mentioned was the everyman. And I think a good example of the everyman hero is somebody like John McClane, the normal guy who is in over his head. A lot of characters in anime, I think you could describe as everyman heroes, even though they have superpowers. So, I mean, like taking Deku, for example, even though he has superpowers, he's still a character that is grounded in this kind of like realistic insecurity where he feels like he's not capable of doing the things that he's doing. I also think that Jackie Chan is also great at playing an everyman. Even though he's like the greatest martial artist and he beats the shit out of everybody, he acts like he's in over his head. And if I'm going to be completely honest, when I think of the typical everyman character in anime, I think of Tenchi from Tenchi Muyo. I don't know why, but Tenchi strikes me as kind of like the typical everyman anime character, where he is kind of an unremarkable person. Like, he's not that charming, but he has all of these chicks that are in love with him. And it's like, that's the whole idea. The admirable factor about Tenchi is that you want to be him and you want to be the schlubby dude who has all these chicks interested in you just because. And the last archetype, obviously, is the anti-hero. When I was a young man, the anti-hero I thought was the fucking coolest hero ever. And anti-heroes, of course, are characters like Spawn or the Punisher, Guts. These characters for me when I was a kid was always cool. You know, the anti-hero, they help people, they do the right thing, but they get their hands bloody when they do it. Anti-heroes will save the day, but they will also break skulls and leave a trail of bodies as they save the day. They are overly violent, they are overly aggressive, they have anger issues, and it's pretty fucking awesome. And I think what's interesting about an anti-hero, and the thing that makes an anti-hero different from the Boy Scout and the Everyman, is that anti-heroes have this very obvious vulnerability. And I think about Guts. Guts is a character who is emotionally in turmoil, and he can't control his rage. And he will go into these berserker rages and just wipe out fucking armies of people. But he'll also have these moments of like silent contemplation where he's like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like, why do I do these fucked up things? And I think that makes the anti-hero a very relatable character. That's why so many people love anti-heroes, because they can identify with not being in control of your emotions and not being in control of your feelings. I don't know, maybe it's getting softer with old age. Maybe it's growing and becoming more mature. But even though I was a big fan of anti-heroes when I was younger, as I get older, I become more and more of a fan of the Boy Scout do-gooder hero. When I was younger and you would have asked me like who's one of the coolest anime characters, I would have said Guts. But as I get older, you know, Guts might get knocked down by Vash because as I get older, I feel like I relate a little bit more and more with Vash. I like the fact that Vash is a pacifist. He wants to avoid conflict. He doesn't want to kill people. And I think it's a bit of a misnomer to label Vash as a Boy Scout or even as like a do-gooder, because he is, I mean, sure, he is those things, but he's not a man devoid of conflict. And we definitely see this in Trigun when he is put in positions when he is forced to kill people. And we see the conflict in this character where he has his convictions and he has his principles, but unfortunately for the greater good, he has to take a life, even though it's against everything he stands for. I think that's a really powerful idea, and I admire Vash the Stampede a lot more because he is somebody who strives to be better than he is. You know, I don't know, maybe that's something I kind of relate to in my life. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say on the subject of heroes at this moment. This is definitely a subject that we could cover more in the future, but I think for now, that's all I have to say. Hopefully you got something interesting out of it, but yeah, that's it. This week's question comes from Malcolm. And I'm going to paraphrase Malcolm's email because Malcolm's email is a little long and he sent me a bunch of links giving me examples of the question that he's asking me. So rather than read this verbatim and then describe the links that he sent me, I feel like the easiest thing I can do is paraphrase this. Malcolm sent me an email asking me about this trope in action films where you see a quiet dramatic scene preceding a loud bombastic action sequence. So like think about that sequence in the 2009 Star Trek movie where Captain Pike meets up with young Kirk and wants to recruit him to join Starfleet, and they have that quiet conversation. Then suddenly the bar breaks out in this big brawl. Malcolm is asking me what are my thoughts on that trope, because this is a trope that Malcolm is very fond of, and he feels like this is a trope they use to great effect in Blade Runner. Also, in Malcolm's email, he included a quote from director Gareth Edwards, where Gareth Edwards said, "Quiet moments make action much bigger." Thank you, Malcolm, for sending me this email. I'm sorry I didn't read it out verbatim, and I'm sorry it took me so long to read this. Malcolm sent me this email a while ago, so I'm sorry that it took me so long, but thank you, Malcolm, for sending me the email. So what are my thoughts on quiet dramatic sequences preceding loud bombastic action sequences? I think that is awesome. I think action movies, any movies, they're like music. They need to have a flow, they need to have a feel. And, you know, I think the best melodies have highs and lows. You know, you don't want to just hit the same tone the whole way through. That would be boring as fuck. Just like writing a great song, I think a great action film needs to have variety in moments. You need to have big highs, and you need to have like mid-ground, and then you need to have your low lows. And that keeps the audience interested in the film and they don't get bored. I mean, the worst thing an action movie can be is boring. And I think my favorite example of this trope is Hard Boiled. That scene in the fucking warehouse where you have Chow Yun-fat loading the shotgun, and then Tony Leung, the fucking Mandarin. Isn't it fucking crazy that Tony Leung is the Mandarin? That's fucking awesome. Anyway, that scene is fucking awesome. The Mandarin's fucking smoking his cigarette, Chow Yun-fat's loading the shotgun, and the camera's just panning around that warehouse. Then after that, we go right into full-on heroic bloodshed mode with just explosions and shit flying all over the place. No, that's fucking awesome. I do love that. I think quiet drama, quiet moments, however you want to describe it, preceding loud action sequences is definitely awesome. So yeah, I really don't know what else to say about that. I'm sorry, Malcolm, that it took me so long to answer your question. And I'm sure it was not worth the wait, but it is what it is. Thank you once again for sending in a question. And if you would like to have a question answered by me, you could send me an email at studiochojin@gmail.com, make the subject raw, and I will happily read it on a future edition of this program. So that wraps up this week's edition of Studio Chojin Raw. I hope you enjoyed this episode. More stuff is on the way. I want to try to, make 2022 a big year. Hopefully, I'll succeed in that. I'll probably fail miserably, but at least I tried. So, yes, cool stuff on the way. Thanks for checking out the video. I want to implore you to join the unholy army of the night. Subscribe to Studio Chojin. Like the video. You can leave a comment, or you can do nothing at all. Yeah, I got nothing else to say. This is Reverend Paul saying, until we meet again.